Good morning. This is Roland. I just wanted to touch base with you and let you know that I have a message of positivity this morning as I'm sitting here by the fire in my yurt. My trusty beast here, Jasper. I have a message about imagination. So there was a somewhat smart man named Albert Einstein, and of course he made a lot of discoveries in his lifetime. One of the things that he was quoted as saying was that imagination is more important than knowledge. And it took me a long time to understand exactly what he was talking about. And I think I do understand now. Knowledge is subjective, you might say, because people can look at things from different perspectives. And we've seen that science has been co-opted. You remember? Not that long ago, we were told what we had to do because the science told us to do it. Follow the science. Well, has the science changed? Science hasn't changed. It's just that we realized that people were using it for their own agenda, right? You get that, right? The science hasn't changed. We've just come to understand what has been kept from us. We can influence this matrix more than you know. That is what is being kept from you. That's why when you turn on any kind of a television or your device and you're streaming or watching anything that's news, what you're finding out is that they're manipulating your thinking. Anytime you can manipulate somebody's thinking, you can manipulate the matrix. You can manipulate reality. If we all find out just how much we can influence reality based on our imagination, what we think and feel. Henry Ford said, among other things, I'm sure, but he said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. So, I don't know. I sit down in the mornings and I listen to I Am meditations. I listen to Neville Goddard. He talks about our imagination. He kind of ties it into a way that his audience back in the 60s and early 70s would have understood. He had I think a Christian audience, and he was trying to let them know that Jesus Christ, as they see it in the religion, is actually your human imagination. Now, that's a bit of a stretch, and especially I'm not a religious person, but I did grow up with Catholicism and then Christianity, so to me it kind of makes sense. Imagination is the key. That is the key. You have to be able to imagine it. Now, here is a scenario for you to think about. How about this? Instead of listening to what mainstream media is saying, I haven't listened to CBC in at least 3 years. I knew they were full of shit at the beginning of the pandemic, okay? Another one of our God-given gifts is intuition. It happens down here in your gut. You have to listen to it. It has saved me on so many occasions. So many occasions. Recently, really saved me. Really saved me. I almost had a head-on with a logging truck. Well, I did hit it. But as it would happen is he was coming around the corner and I was coming around the corner on a logging road. So no fault of his. He had to take up the whole corner. He's a 70-foot long truck. As I'm going around the corner, boom, there's a logging truck right in front of me. I hit the brakes as hard as I could. I was only doing like 20, 25 kilometers an hour. And that was my intuition that told me, go slow. I just missed his bumper by a hair. And then I slammed into the rear fuel tank of it. And all I did was dent the rail, the step that he had on his fuel tank that protects the fuel tank and gives him a step up. I bent that in with the front of my Kia Spectra. It's a tiny little car, man. You think I saw that logging truck, and funny thing is I wasn't scared. I thought it could be over right now. Like, you just see a logging truck straight in front of you coming at you. You're like, I guess this is it. I don't know why, but maybe I just had angels with me that day. I just felt, I don't know. I reacted, and I'm still here to talk about it, so that's good. The driver got out. I was just like, holy shit. He's like, wow, that was lucky. I shook his hand. I couldn't be mad at him. I should have had a radio. I should have been letting him know on the road where I was. So anyway, all good. It just reminded me that I could trust my intuition. So I wanted to talk to you about imagination, and I've got a scenario to offer you, something to think about, something different than you might see if you turned on your television or your radio or your YouTube or whatever, and got the information from there. Now, there's different information out there. I'm not watching mainstream media, but even if you're watching some really good journalists, okay, out there, and they're giving you the alternate side of things, or even the truth. Here's another thing, truth. I think that's subjective as well, to some degree. Misinformation, disinformation. We're living in a strange age. They're trying to censor the internet here in Canada. Censor us all. We'll go down to a peaceful protest and they freeze your bank account. Trample you with a horse. We have the right to be there. It was a peaceful protest. It's in our Constitution. It's in our Bill of Rights. And it's a God-given right. And once we realize that, constitutions really don't mean much. I personally have not pledged allegiance to the British Commonwealth. And I never was much of a patriot until a couple years ago when I realized if we don't fight for this country, we're not going to have one. So here is a beautiful scenario to imagine. How about the House of Cards collapses? Maybe it looks a lot like Trudeau getting arrested and his deputy prime minister being arrested and a complete house cleaning. Let's just find out who was completely complicit in the crimes over the last couple years. Let's imagine that. Let's imagine a court that has actual clout, not the kangaroo court that the Emergency Act Commission, whatever that crap was. Let's have a real court, like The Hague, or our own version of it. I'm talking about actual justice. I'm not talking about violence. I'm not talking about rising up in arms. It's not what I'm getting at. I'm talking about using our imaginations. If you can imagine it happening, it can happen. I've seen it all kinds of times in my own life. So let's imagine Trudeau being hauled away in handcuffs and being held accountable for his actions. And instead of electing in the conservative guy who you know damn well he's going to sell us out as soon as he can, he's part of the same problem. He should be calling for Trudeau's arrest. Instead, occasionally he talks about Trudeau retiring onto some beach and surfing out his days. No way, man. Trudeau's going to jail. He's going to be in jail for a long time, as are a lot of his cronies. The whole thing has to collapse. The whole Klaus Schwab thing and all these Bill Gates, all these billionaires that influence and think they can run the world. Guess what? The Great Awakening is just people realizing that our imaginations are key. That's the Great Awakening. That's the divine intervention we're all waiting for. It's right there. Just wake up. Realize that you can use your own imagination. Go into a meditative state. Sit down. Turn off your device. Just do some deep breathing. And start imagining the world that you want for your kids and your grandkids. Clean air. I see an end to this geoengineering program. If people don't see it, then great. Just imagine the sky is nice and blue. That's the best. That's the best. Sometimes too much knowledge impedes your imagination. So, yeah, that's where we're at, folks. We need to use our imaginations. We need to see the world that we want to live in. Come together in community. Passive solar greenhouses, growing our own food year-round, using aquaponics, hydroponics, living soil, working with mycelium in our soil, working with bacteria, understanding viruses, keeping our frequency up. Once we come to understand frequency, there's another bright guy, Nikola Tesla. He said, you want to understand the universe, think of it in energy, frequency, and vibration. I think he said it like that. It might have been the words turned around, but that's exactly what he said. It was understanding frequency. That's the key. That's the key. Raise your frequency. Come from love. Come from the heart. Forgive yourself. Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. I thank you. It's an old Hawaiian prayer. You forgive yourself and forgive others. Once we can do that, then we can move on. Use your imagination. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your grandkids. Don't buy into the fear-mongering. Don't participate in that digital ID either. That's a bad idea. Whatever you have to do. And don't take any more experimental inoculations. That's not a good idea either. That shit's not good. We're going to find that out. You'll see. Yeah. But, as I said, with your imagination, you can influence that too. Why not imagine that we have a miracle cure for those that did take it and are sick from it? Let's hold those big companies accountable, the ones that made hundreds of billions of dollars over the last few years. Let's hold them accountable. Use your imagination, people. It's your God-given gift. Peace out.